Hello, it's Sarah from Hardcover Hearts, and I'm here with my week of reading wrap-up. You may have noticed recently that I haven't been able to maintain the normal schedule that I usually had. I would usually film on Friday and upload later on that afternoon, evening. But work has become very, very intense in the last few months, and it just means that I don't have the same kind of bandwidth during the day, especially during lunch, to edit and get something up. So instead of stressing myself out and not doing anything, I've decided that I'm instead going to film and edit over the weekend, so it'll be up either on Saturday or Sunday. And I credit myself for not saying Friday reads, but week of reading. So I will wrap up my week of reading on a Friday or a Saturday. Sorry, I can't be more prescriptive than that, but times being what they are, it's a little hard to push everything aside in order to focus on this. And I want to be able to do that. I want to come here and not be rushed and not be fearful of getting things out quickly, but instead be thoughtful about what I choose to talk about. So let's get started. I had an okay reading week, a same challenge about videoing. It happened about reading. I just didn't get a lot of reading done or completed because I am reading some heavy, hefty tomes. So let's talk about what I finished. The first thing that I finished, which I think is going to go down as one of my favorite books, favorite Victober books ever, or just favorite ghost stories. This is The Canterville Ghost by Oscar Wilde. Now, I picked this one up on my last trip to London. This is published by Daunt Books, and I just adore that bookshop so very much. Marylebone High Street is just so beautiful. Everyone is so wonderful there. Jack is probably one of the best booksellers I've ever come across. So when I saw this there, I thought, oh, it's perfect. Number one, I love a good novella, and this was just so funny. It was so witty and hilarious. So basically, it's the story of a ghost that's been in this mansion for a very, very long time, centuries. And an American family comes to live in the home, and the American family actually terrorizes the ghost, and it is so funny. This poor ghost just wants to do his job that he's been doing for centuries, and instead gets completely run over by this family. And it's delightful. It's funny. It's so funny, richly fun. Could not speak more highly of it. I gave it 5 stars, and I'm so glad I own a copy because this is something that I want to reread over and over again. So I started off last weekend with a bang with this. Then I finished Daniel Deronda. This is for Victober. So I have read Middlemarch, and I love it dearly. I think it's so smart and has so many interesting characters, and it just weaves so many brilliant stories together. I absolutely adore it. And so I went into this with high hopes. This is my second George Eliot. I have not read a lot of George Eliot at all. And I have to say, this was a mixed bag for me. This is a case where I respect it more than I enjoyed it. But I enjoyed it enough to give it a 3.5 star rating. But what I didn't like was all of the times where I seemed to have I just kind of ran up against a lot of very heavy discussion that felt more like an education and a convincing, a case being made, which given the times, I understand why. Without a doubt. So let me give you a little backstory. We have Daniel Deronda, who is our main character, and we open up with a different character in the opening scenes, and this is Gwendolyn. And Gwendolyn is a young woman, and she is at a gambling table, and she is just having the time of her life and feeling very powerful and all of this. She leaves the gambling table only to receive word from her family that they've lost everything and that she's expected to return ASAP. She wants to duck out quietly, doesn't want to make a scene, especially doesn't want anyone to accompany her on her return. So she sneaks away and pawns a necklace. While she was at the gambling table, she met Daniel Deronda, our main character, and she felt that he was very haughty and that he was judging her. But she was attracted to him. She was interested in him, and she really felt like she needed to make a strong case for why she should not be judged. Well, she pawns this necklace, and the necklace comes back to her and is given to her back as a return gift from an anonymous person who she assumes is Daniel Deronda. And then we see her going back to her family. She is a very frustrating character. I loved her when I first met her, but when you find out more about her, she's very flighty. She's very superficial. She's not very thoughtful. She's a very challenging character to like. But she becomes obsessed with winning Daniel's esteem. Daniel is someone who doesn't know his parentage. He's being raised by a kind older gentleman who's a lord, and he's always kind of assumed in the back of his mind that maybe that is his father. He's just not accepting parentage or officially recognizing him. One day, Daniel is coming home, and he sees a woman in clear distress and who is contemplating suicide. And he saves her, and he brings her to family friends of his, and they take care of her. And she is a good person. She's a truly good person, but she is just tormented, and a lot of it comes from her Jewish heritage, and she just feels that she's separate from many people, and also is tormented by being separated by from her mother and her brother by her father, who misused her and was trying to put her on the stage and trying to get her to be a performer, and just not a very good person at all. So through this process of getting to know Myra and getting to know her backstory and trying to help her look for her brother and her mother, he meets an older gentleman who he really feels an affinity for, and they have a very interesting friendship. And this is where, for me, the dialogue became really stilted and really heavy, and it became a lesson in Jewish identity, and it became a lesson in the value of the Jewish culture. Absolutely crucially important, but it was just so heavily handed in its delivery that I just wanted to skip through, and it pulled me out of the narrative instead of pulling me in. So I think that, again, really respect what she was doing. This was very important at that time, and I think it was important for her to do. I just think that for me, the manner in which it came across just didn't work, and it created these stilted gaps within the narration for me. So I gave it a 3 stars. I'm glad that I read it, but it's not going to be one of my favorites of hers by far. So that was 2 books. Then for British Black History Month, I did a little research, and I wanted to find some contemporary Black authors that I don't know of from Britain. And I came across this. This is by Ashley Hickson Lovence, and this is his first novel. This is a debut, and it's called The 392. And the story, in essence, is about a bus line, a brand new bus line in London, and one trip. So it's a single trip that's made on this line on a day in London, on a rainy day in London. I'm here to tell you that this took me to London immediately. First off, when I opened the little map that it provided, it's a map of a neighborhood that my husband and I stay in when we go to London. So I knew exactly where some of these places are. So that drew me in. The characters are the voice and the switching of the voices. We go from different characters who have stepped onto this bus. And I thought it was very well done. It's plotty. It's not what you expect. There are some things that are a little shocking, and some that are really telling. And there's so much of London in here, and just names of places and of cultural references, of historical references, in multicultural. It's everything I love about London in terms of like the vibrancy that exists. There's a lot of vibrancy in these pages. I liked it, but it was kind of a contemporary novel. It feels very now. It was published in 2020. It's not out in the United States, so I had to order this from the UK. But I enjoyed it. And if you are missing London, like I'm missing London, this might give you a good sense of place and time. So that's a 392. I do recommend it. I gave it a 3.5. Okay, so then what am I reading? I'm in the middle of reading a lot of things. Okay, making great progress in this chunkster. This is the year of reading huge books. So this is Charles Dickens' Bleak House. So I'm a little more than halfway through. It's very complex. There are so many characters, and the web right now is really wide. So you see some pieces that are starting to come together, but other things are still really gaping holes of like, well, what's happening? How is this going to relate to each other? But the characters are fun. The names are fun. There's some really tender, poignant moments in the section that I read this past week. Really am enjoying doing this with Leo of A Little Book Life, my buddy reader extraordinaire. And I did do a little audio of this week. So I would do audio and then I'd pick up and read a little bit in this edition, and then also my Folio Society edition, because the etchings in that are just phenomenal. So it's just been fun. It's been fun. Looking forward to continuing on. We have 2 more check-ins and then we're done. Then let's see. Leo and I are also continuing on with our In Search of Lost Time. This is volume 2, In the Shadow of the Young Girls in Flower. This is what we're doing is, instead of kind of breaking the book up into like force like we sometimes do, what works really well for us is to just read 20 pages at a time and then check in after we get there. And that gives us enough richness to talk about. And it also seems to be at nice settings. So it seems like he puts little vignettes in, or little scenes in that amount of time. So it's giving us enough to talk about, but at the same time, we're keeping pace. So that's fantastic. I also got back into the Virginia Woolf Writer's Diary and talked with Elizabeth about it this week. So what we've decided to do is we're going to, very similar to Proust, we're just going to take a year of her diary at a time and then check in when we're done with that portion. And what's so funny is that when we talk about this, we always seem to identify the same pieces and the same little sections, which is just a delight, when you have somebody who's reading and in tuned in certain ways that you are. So that's been quite fun. And then I'm continuing on with Old in Art School, a memoir of starting over by Nell Irvin Painter. Taking this slowly. I usually read this in the evening as the lights are starting to go down as I'm getting in bed. So I'm enjoying it when I'm reading it, but I'm not like rushing to finish it. It's okay that I'm taking a little while with it. So now let's talk about what's on deck for next week. So I want to get to The Warden by Trollope. I feel like I would be doing myself a disservice by not reading a Trollope for this Victober. And we're a little more than halfway through, so I still think I have time. And this is not a very long one. And of course, I'm still reading Bleak House, so I need to figure out where I'm going to kind of slide this one in. So next up is going to be for the Spilling Tea Book Club. This is an excellent book club, highly recommend it. And it's being hosted by Russell from Ink and Paper Blog, who's fantastic. And then also Ryan, who's wonderful. And he's more on, Russell's here on BookTube. And Ryan is more prominent on Bookstagram, on Instagram. And Ryan does Read by Ryan. And for their Spilling Tea, the next one for November is going to be Antonia Fraser's Quiet as a Nun. This is a really hard book to see because of the stamps and everything from the Berkeley Public Library. And it's also a hard book to find. I was really nervous I wasn't going to be able to get this. But I'm super excited. It's tiny, so that's great. But let me read a little bit of the intro here, or the flap. It says, when a nun is found dead in a ruined tower at Blessed Eleanor's convent, Jemima Shore, a renowned television reporter, is called in by Reverend Mother and Celia to investigate. Blessed Eleanor's was Gemma's own convent school, and the dead nun was heiress to a fortune. So y'all know I love a mystery. So a mystery that was written in, let's see, when was this done? 1977. And Antonia Fraser is also known as a historical writer. So she's written a lot of history books. So this just sounds fun. And you can't go wrong with something slim like this. It's literally, let's see, really nice big print too. I'm at that age where I'm liking some nice big print. 176 pages. So perfect little thing. So maybe I'll try to read that this week. So that's from the library. And yeah, I think that's it. I think that's a good amount to be currently in play with, probably more than I should, given all of the work that I have to do. But that's where I am. I would love to know, have you read any of these books? What are your thoughts? How's your Booktober going? How's your reading going in general? That's it for me for now. Please, as always, stay safe in this pandemic. Wear your mask. Maintain safe social distance, wash your hands, and don't touch your face. That's it for me. I'll look forward to talking to you again next week. Bye.